The war between humans and the Seraphim Empire had lasted for decades. It was a war neither side wanted but couldn't seem to end. Both civilizations had suffered greatly, cities reduced to dust, fleets destroyed, and countless lives lost. The war had started over territory, but after so many years, no one even remembered the true reason. It had become a cycle of endless battles with no real victor. But then, something unexpected happened. A group of diplomats from both sides gathered on New Terra, a neutral planet, hoping to negotiate peace. The talks were difficult. Every time a deal was close, old grudges and broken promises ruined it. The war seemed impossible to stop. Then, the Seraphim delegation made an unbelievable offer. "If our two species must live together in peace," said Grand Chancellor Veros, the leader of the Seraphim, "then let us prove it in the most binding way possible. A union between one of your own and our beloved princess, Alara." Silence filled the room. The humans exchanged confused glances. Was this some kind of joke? The Seraphim were a proud and mysterious race. They were known for their grace, intelligence, and long lifespans, but they rarely shared anything about their personal lives with outsiders. Their royal family was sacred, their traditions even more so. For them to offer a marriage between their princess and a human was unheard of. At first, the human representatives were skeptical. "You expect us to believe a wedding will stop the war?" asked Ambassador Clark, a veteran negotiator. "Not just any wedding," Chancellor Veros replied. "A true bond, a sign to both our peoples that this war is over. If our princess is willing to stand beside a human, then no Seraphim will dare question our alliance." The room fell silent again. The idea was risky, strange, and possibly dangerous, but for the first time, peace seemed within reach. And that was how Commander Ryan Wells found himself sitting in a cold negotiation chamber, staring at a holographic contract with his name on it. Ryan was a soldier, not a politician. He had fought in this war, seen friends lost, and had never imagined himself as a diplomat, let alone a husband. But after days of discussion, the decision had been made. The humans agreed to the proposal, and the Seraphim had chosen him. "Why me?" Ryan had asked. "You are respected," Ambassador Clark said. "Brave, honorable, and intelligent. The Seraphim believe you can handle this. And most importantly, you are not a politician. That makes you neutral." Neutral, a word that sounded simple but carried great meaning. Still, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something far greater than himself. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for, the first meeting between the human groom and the alien bride. When Ryan entered the ceremonial chamber, he wasn't sure what to expect. He had seen images of Princess Alara, but pictures did not prepare him for the real thing. She stood tall, her posture graceful and perfect. Her deep violet skin shimmered under the soft lights, and her long silver-white hair flowed down her back like silk. Her golden eyes studied him calmly, yet curiously, as if she was trying to understand everything about him in mere seconds. Ryan had faced deadly battles, brutal missions, and impossible odds, but standing before Alara, he felt completely unprepared. "Commander Ryan Wells," she said, her voice smooth yet powerful, "I see they have chosen a warrior for me." Ryan cleared his throat, standing straighter. "I didn't exactly volunteer." Her lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but not displeased either. "Nor did I. Yet here we are." There was an unspoken challenge in her words, as if she was testing him. Ryan had spent years reading his enemies, sensing threats before they struck, but with Alara, he felt off balance. She was neither friend nor enemy. At least, not yet. "The war must end," she continued. "If this is the price, I will pay it. Will you?" Ryan met her gaze. He had never wanted this role, but if it meant stopping the war, saving lives, and giving humanity a future, then he would do it. "I will," he said firmly. The ceremony was swift, almost too formal and distant to feel real. There were no traditional vows, no grand celebrations, only witnesses, an agreement, and a simple binding ritual that symbolized their union. By the time it was over, the galaxy had changed. The war that had lasted for decades was officially over. The people of both civilizations celebrated in the streets. Leaders called it a miracle. Soldiers laid down their weapons. Hope spread across the stars. But Ryan Wells knew something most did not. This was only the beginning. The marriage might have ended the war, but it had also trapped him in a situation he barely understood. And as he stood beside Alara, watching the celebrations from the royal balcony, he felt her glance at him, not with the cold gaze of an obligation, but with something deeper, something more mysterious. She wasn't just accepting this arrangement. She was studying him, considering him, waiting for something. And that was when Ryan realized a chilling truth. This wasn't just a fake marriage to secure peace. The princess had no intention of letting him go. Ryan Wells had trained for war, survived deadly missions, and made difficult decisions under pressure. But nothing had prepared him for the life of a royal consort. It had been 2 weeks since the marriage ceremony, and the galaxy was still celebrating. News networks played endless footage of the wedding, analyzing every moment. The people of both civilizations saw their union as a symbol of peace, a miracle that had ended a war no one thought could be stopped. To the public, Ryan and Princess Alara were the perfect couple. But behind the closed doors of the Scifi royal palace, things were very different. Ryan sat across from Alara in their shared quarters, a grand and luxurious space made of smooth white stone and glowing blue crystals. The walls shimmered softly, giving the room an almost dreamlike feel. It was nothing like the cold, steel interiors of human ships and bases. Alara stood near the balcony, gazing out at the floating city of Velmara, the capital of the Scifi Empire. The twin moons above cast a silver glow over the towering spires and glowing waterways. Her silver-white hair moved gently in the breeze, but her posture remained calm and composed, as if she were always in control. Ryan cleared his throat. "So, we should talk." Alara turned, her golden eyes studying him. "About what, Commander?" Ryan sighed. "About how long we have to keep this going. The treaty is signed. The war is over. Now that we've done our part, maybe we should start planning how to." Alara tilted her head slightly. "How to dissolve the marriage." "Yeah." Ryan exhaled, relieved that she understood. "We both know this wasn't real. It was just politics. When the time is right, we can go our separate ways. And no." Ryan blinked. "No." Alara stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "You speak as if this is a temporary arrangement." "It is not." Ryan frowned. "That wasn't the deal. We agreed this was just to stop the war." Alara nodded. "And the war is over. But peace is fragile. If we separate too soon, some will see it as a sign of weakness. Enemies will rise again. Do you truly believe we can just walk away and everything will remain stable?" Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but he hesitated. She had a point. There were still old rivalries, people on both sides who didn't trust this new alliance. If their marriage fell apart too quickly, it could give those people an excuse to restart hostilities. "So what are you saying?" Ryan asked. "We just stay married forever." Alara's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. "At least until peace is secure." Ryan groaned, running a hand through his hair. "And how long is that going to take?" Alara turned away, looking back out at the city. "Perhaps years." Ryan stared at her. "Years? Is that truly so terrible?" Alara asked. "You live in luxury, you are honored among my people, and you hold more power than most humans ever will. Do you find this life so unbearable?" Ryan couldn't deny that things could be worse. His quarters were comfortable, the food was incredible, and he had personal guards who followed him everywhere. But still, this wasn't his world. This wasn't his life. "I'm a soldier, not a prince," Ryan muttered. Alara finally turned to face him again, stepping closer. Then adapt. That is what your species does best, is it not? Ryan exhaled, crossing his arms. Fine. But if we're stuck in this, we need some rules. A deal. Alara nodded. I agree. First, Ryan said, we keep this professional. No expectations beyond what's necessary for the public. Agreed, Alara said. Second, Ryan continued, I need something to do. I can't just sit in a palace all day being your decorative husband. Alara's golden eyes gleamed with amusement. You wish for a role. I need a purpose, Ryan said firmly. Something real. Alara studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. The Scifi military has yet to fully integrate with your forces. You will serve as an advisor, helping both sides work together. Ryan considered it. It wasn't combat, but at least it was something useful. All right. That works. Then we have an agreement, Alara said. Our marriage remains intact. We present a united front. You serve as a military advisor. And in return, I will not trap you, as you seem to fear. Ryan wasn't sure if he believed that last part, but he let it go. For now. The first public appearance. 2 days later, Ryan and Alara made their first official appearance as a married couple at a grand diplomatic banquet. The massive hall was filled with leaders, military officials, and diplomats from both species. The room shimmered with elegant Scifi architecture, high vaulted ceilings, floating crystal chandeliers, and holographic displays of galaxies spinning in slow motion. Ryan wore the ceremonial robes of a Scifi royal consort. He felt ridiculous. The outfit was too formal, too elegant for someone used to military uniforms, but there was no way around it. Alara, on the other hand, moved through the hall with grace and confidence, dressed in flowing Scifi attire adorned with delicate silver patterns. They played their roles perfectly, standing together, smiling at the right moments, speaking politely to guests. Ryan had to admit, Alara was good at this game. She spoke to each guest with ease, giving just enough attention to make them feel important. At one point, an older Scifi noble approached and said, I must admit, I doubted this union. But seeing you together, I now believe. Alara smiled. The bond between our people is strong. Ryan forced the smile and nodded. We'll make this work. The noble left, satisfied. Ryan leaned slightly toward Alara and whispered, You're really good at lying, aren't you? Alara's golden eyes flickered with amusement. And you are learning quickly, Commander. Ryan sighed. This was going to be a long few years. But deep down, a small part of him wondered, was this really just an act? Or was something else beginning to form between them? Ryan Wells had expected many challenges when he agreed to the marriage. He knew politics would be involved. He knew the public would watch his every move. He even knew his new life in the Scifi Empire would be nothing like his old one as a human soldier. But he had not expected to be a target. It started as whispers in the shadows, strange looks from Scifi nobles, unanswered messages from human officials back home, conversations that stopped the moment he entered a room. Something was wrong, but no one would say it aloud. One evening, while studying reports in his chambers, Ryan received an anonymous message on his datapad. The screen flickered with a single sentence. They want the war back. Ryan's grip tightened. His instincts, honed from years of military service, told him one thing: trouble was coming. The growing distance. Ryan tried to talk to Alara, but she was distant. Their public appearances remained perfect, walking side by side, exchanging polite words, showing the galaxy their strong marriage. But behind closed doors, she was more distracted than usual, buried in meetings with the High Council, avoiding certain topics. One night, after another long day of diplomatic ceremonies, Ryan finally confronted her. Alara, he said, standing in the doorway of her private study. I need answers. She didn't look up from the glowing screen of her console. About what? Ryan stepped closer. I know something is happening. People are acting strange. Messages are being blocked. I got a warning. Someone wants to undo the peace. Alara's golden eyes flickered with something unreadable. She sighed and finally met his gaze. You are not wrong. Ryan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Then tell me the truth. She hesitated, which was rare for her. Finally, she spoke. There are factions, on both sides, who believe this peace is a mistake. Some humans feel we forced your leaders into this agreement. Some Seraphim believe we should have never stopped the war. Ryan clenched his fists. So they want to start it again. Alara nodded slowly. If they can break the alliance, they will have their war back. Ryan exhaled sharply. And what are we doing about it? Alara's expression hardened. We are watching, listening, gathering proof. But we must be careful. If we move too soon, we could expose weaknesses that they will exploit. Ryan wasn't satisfied with that answer. Waiting and watching. That wasn't his way. But he also knew that Seraphim politics were not simple. A single wrong move could shatter everything they had built. Still, one thing was clear. This fake marriage had become more than just a political tool. It was now the only thing standing between peace and war. The attack. The threat became real 1 week later. Ryan was walking through the grand halls of the palace, accompanied by his Seraphim guards. It was supposed to be a routine evening. Nothing unusual. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. The air filled with a strange, high-pitched sound, like energy building up. Ryan had spent years in combat. He didn't need to be told what was happening. An ambush. Get down, he shouted. A blast of energy tore through the air, missing him by inches. His guards reacted instantly, activating their shields. A group of cloaked figures appeared from the shadows, weapons raised. The fight was fast and brutal. Ryan dodged another shot, grabbing a fallen weapon. He might not have been in active combat for a while, but his instincts hadn't faded. He fired back, forcing the attackers into cover. Seraphim security swarmed in, their weapons glowing with blue energy. The attackers tried to escape, but one was captured alive. The others vanished into the night, leaving behind only chaos and unanswered questions. Ryan stood over the captured figure, breathing hard. He pulled back the hood, revealing the human face. A human, one of his own. Ryan's stomach tightened. This wasn't just a Seraphim problem. There were humans who wanted this marriage to fail too. The hard truth. That night, Ryan sat in Alara's study once again, his arms crossed as he watched the security footage. They were ready, he said. They had inside knowledge. Alara stood beside him, her face unreadable. Yes. Ryan turned to her. You knew something like this would happen, didn't you? She didn't deny it. It was only a matter of time. Ryan felt a wave of frustration. You should have warned me. Alara's golden eyes locked onto his. Would it have changed anything? You still would have been in danger. But now, at least, we have a prisoner. We have proof. Ryan rubbed his face, exhaling. So what now? Alara's expression softened, just slightly. Now we fight back. Ryan met her gaze and saw something new in her eyes. Not just calculation, not just duty. Determination. Maybe, just maybe, this marriage wasn't just about peace anymore. Maybe they were in this together. Ryan Wells had been in dangerous situations before. He had fought in battles, survived impossible odds, and faced enemies who wanted him dead. But this was different. This was not war. This was a game of shadows, where enemies hid behind diplomacy, where attacks came from whispers in the dark, and where the wrong move could break everything. And now he was in the center of it. The interrogation. The captured attacker sat in a cold, dimly lit chamber deep inside the Seraphim palace. Ryan stood on one side of the table, arms crossed, while Alara stood on the other, her golden eyes unreadable. The prisoner was human, a soldier from Earth. His uniform had no insignia, no markings to show which faction he belonged to. But his eyes burned with hatred as he looked at Ryan. "You betrayed your own kind," the prisoner spat. Ryan didn't react. He had heard worse before. "Who sent you?" The man smirked. "You think I'll tell you?" Alara stepped forward. "You attacked the royal consort of the Seraphim Empire. That is an act of war." Her voice was calm but cold. "If war is what your people want, we can give it to them." The prisoner's expression flickered, just for a second. He wasn't expecting that. Ryan watched carefully. He had seen this before. Soldiers who thought they were in control, only to realize they weren't. "You don't want war," Ryan said, his voice steady. "You want chaos. You want the peace to break. That means you're not working for Earth's government. You're working for someone else." The prisoner didn't answer. Ryan leaned forward. "We already know the truth. There are factions, on both sides, that want the war back. You're just a pawn. The people who sent you don't care about you. If you die here, they'll replace you." The man's jaw tightened. Ryan pressed on. "But if you help us, we can protect you." The prisoner laughed bitterly. "You think I'm afraid to die?" Alara stepped closer, her golden eyes sharp. "No, but you fear being forgotten." For the first time, the man hesitated. Ryan and Alara exchanged a quick glance. They were getting somewhere. The hidden threat. Later that night, Ryan sat in Alara's private study, reviewing the intelligence reports. The palace was on high alert, and security had been doubled. The prisoner had given them a name, the Crimson Dawn, a secret faction that believed the war should have never ended. It wasn't just a group of rebels. It was an organized movement, with resources, spies, and operatives inside both governments. Ryan rubbed his face, exhaling. "This is worse than we thought." Alara nodded, her expression unreadable. "If they have influence inside the Human Federation and the Seraphim Empire, then they could destabilize everything we've built." Ryan looked at her. "And what do we do about it?" Alara finally turned to him, her golden eyes locking onto his. "We stop them." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Just like that?" Alara's lips curved slightly. "You are the one who always says humans adapt." "Then adapt, Commander." Ryan sighed, shaking his head. "Fine, but we need a plan." The trap. Alara called a secret meeting with her most trusted advisors. Together, they crafted a strategy. Let the enemy think they were winning. Alara would publicly announce that the royal couple was planning a major diplomatic summit with Earth's leaders. The idea was simple. If the Crimson Dawn wanted to break the alliance, they would attack during the summit, and Ryan and Alara would be waiting for them. 2 days later, the announcement was made. The summit would take place on Velmera, the Seraphim capital. The reaction was immediate. Messages started flowing. Intercepted transmissions hinted at movement. The enemy was taking the bait. Ryan stood beside Alara as they watched the intelligence reports come in. "This is risky," he muttered. Alara nodded. "But necessary." Ryan exhaled. "Then let's make sure it works." The unexpected moment. That night, Ryan walked onto the balcony of their shared quarters. The twin moons of Velmera cast a soft glow over the city, making the crystal spires shimmer. Alara stood at the edge, her silver-white hair moving gently in the wind. Ryan stepped beside her. "Do you ever miss the war?" Alara turned her head slightly, surprised by the question. Ryan shrugged. "I don't mean the fighting. I mean the simplicity of it. Knowing who the enemy was, knowing what had to be done." Alara was silent for a moment. Then she spoke softly. "War is easy. Peace is hard." Ryan looked at her, realizing something. For all her strength, for all her confidence, Alara carried a weight that few could see. She had been raised to be a ruler, trained to lead, taught to make impossible choices. And yet she stood alone. Ryan exhaled. "Well, for what it's worth, you're not in this alone." Alara's golden eyes met his. For a moment, there were no politics, no war, no deception. Just two people standing under the stars, carrying the burden of peace. Then, Alara did something unexpected. She smiled. It was small, barely there, but it was real. Ryan shook his head. I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad one. Alara's voice was quiet but firm. It means you are finally understanding, Commander. Ryan sighed. Great. Just what I needed. More understanding. Alara's smile lingered for a moment before she turned back to the city. Tomorrow, they would face their enemies. Tomorrow, the war might begin again. But for tonight, under the twin moons of Velmera, there was a moment of peace. And maybe, just maybe, this fake marriage wasn't so fake anymore. The palace on Velmera was alive with activity. Diplomats, military officers, and political leaders from both Earth and the Seraphim Empire had gathered for the historic summit. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful. To the public, it was a step toward a stronger alliance. But Ryan Wells and Princess Alara knew the truth. This was a trap. The enemy, the Crimson Dawn, was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Ryan and Alara had planned everything carefully. Security was doubled. Surveillance drones scanned every corridor. Hidden soldiers stood ready. Still, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. A dangerous warning. Hours before the summit began, Ryan sat in a private security room, reviewing reports with Captain Solver, the head of Alara's personal guard. Their movements don't make sense, Ryan muttered, scanning intercepted transmissions from suspected Crimson Dawn operatives. They should be trying to infiltrate, but it looks like they're waiting. Solver nodded. Perhaps they know we have increased security. Ryan shook his head. Or they have something bigger planned. Just then, his comms device buzzed. Alara's voice came through, calm but urgent. Ryan, come to my chamber. Now. Ryan didn't ask questions. He grabbed his sidearm and rushed through the halls. When he arrived, Alara was standing by the large screen on her wall, her golden eyes sharp with concern. I just received a message, she said, pressing a button. The screen displayed a transmission from an unknown source. A voice, distorted and mechanical, spoke. The summit is a lie. You are walking into your own downfall. Ryan's heartbeat quickened. This isn't Crimson Dawn. Alara's expression darkened. No, this is something else. The enemy within. Ryan and Alara wasted no time. They called in their top security officers and analyzed every detail of the message. We need to assume the summit is compromised, Ryan said. We have to check every security system again. Solver frowned. The palace has been swept 3 times. If something was hidden, we would have found it. Alara thought for a moment. Then her eyes widened slightly. Unless. Ryan looked at her. Unless what? Alara turned to the screen and pulled up the architectural plans of the palace. She zoomed in on the underground levels. There are tunnels beneath the palace, she said. They were built centuries ago as emergency escape routes. But most of them were sealed off. Ryan's jaw tightened. What if they're not as sealed as we think? Without wasting another second, he grabbed his comms. Get a team to the tunnels. Now, the hidden threat. Ryan led a small squad of Seraphim royal guards down into the lower levels of the palace. The air was cold, the stone walls damp. Dust covered the floor, showing no signs of recent movement. But Ryan wasn't convinced. He motioned for the team to spread out, scanning the area carefully. The tunnels were supposed to be abandoned, but something felt off. Then he saw it. A faint mark on the wall, too clean, too fresh. Ryan ran his fingers over it and felt the hidden seam of a false panel. He stepped back and aimed his weapon. Everyone, get ready. With a sharp nod, he pressed the panel. The wall slid open silently, revealing a hidden chamber. And inside, a bomb. The race against time. Ryan's stomach dropped. The device was massive, its energy core humming softly. A timer blinked on its surface. 20 minutes remaining. This isn't just an attack, Ryan muttered. This is an assassination. Alara's voice came through his comms. Ryan, what's happening? Ryan responded quickly. There's a bomb in the tunnels. They were never planning to attack directly. They were going to destroy the summit from below. There was a brief silence before Alara spoke, her voice firm. Can it be disarmed? Ryan examined the device. It was advanced, likely using a biometric lock. If they touched it without the right access, it would detonate instantly. We need the person who said it, Ryan said. Otherwise, we can't shut it down. A desperate gamble. Alara acted fast. She ordered the palace locked down, preventing anyone from escaping. Every suspicious figure was detained. Ryan and his team worked quickly, scanning the bomb for any clues. Then, one of the guards found something, a data chip left near the device. Ryan inserted it into his wrist console, and a holographic image appeared. His breath caught. It was one of the human diplomats from the summit. Ambassador Lorne, Ryan muttered. He's the one who planted it. They had their target. The final confrontation. Ryan and Alara confronted Ambassador Lorne in a secure chamber. The man looked calm, too calm. You found the bomb, Lorne said, as if discussing the weather. Impressive. Ryan's fists clenched. Why? Lorne leaned back. Because peace is an illusion. Because we were meant to fight. Alara's golden eyes burned with anger. You were willing to sacrifice everyone, Seraphin and human alike, for your own agenda. Lorne smirked. A few lives for the greater cause. Acceptable losses. Ryan grabbed him by the collar. You're going to disable that bomb. Now. Lorne chuckled. And if I refuse? Ryan stared at him. Then you go down with it. Something in Lorne's expression changed. For the first time, there was fear. Seconds passed. Then, with a deep sigh, he pulled a small device from his pocket and entered a code. The countdown on the bomb stopped at 30 seconds. Ryan exhaled. It was over. The aftermath. Lorne was arrested, and the bomb was dismantled. The summit continued, but now with greater caution. As Ryan and Alara stood in their private chambers later that night, Ryan turned to her. We stopped one attack, but this isn't over. Alara nodded. No, but we will be ready. Ryan studied her, then said, I don't think this fake marriage is fake anymore. Alara's lips curved slightly. Then perhaps it's time we stopped pretending. Ryan chuckled. That might be the most dangerous thing yet. Alara's golden eyes shone. And yet, you're still here, Commander. Ryan smiled. Yeah, I guess I am. The war wasn't over. The danger wasn't gone. But for the first time, Ryan wasn't just fighting for peace. He was fighting for her. The summit had been saved. The bomb was neutralized. Ambassador Lorne, the traitor, was imprisoned. But Ryan Wells knew this wasn't the end. The Crimson Dawn had failed to destroy the peace talks, but they were still out there, waiting, watching, and they wouldn't stop. A secret message. 3 days after the summit, Ryan was in his quarters when his comm device buzzed. He expected a routine security report, but when he checked the screen, his eyes narrowed. The message was anonymous, sent through a scrambled channel. Meet me in the East Wing Gardens at midnight. Alone. An old friend. Ryan's instincts screamed trap, but something about the message felt different. Whoever sent it didn't try to hide completely. They'd wanted him to see it. Still, he wasn't foolish. He informed Alara, who wasn't pleased. This could be an ambush, she said. Ryan smirked. Could be, but if it's not, we might get valuable intel. Alara sighed, then nodded. Fine, but I will have guards nearby. Ryan didn't argue. A meeting in the dark. At midnight, Ryan stepped into the silent gardens. The soft glow of Velmera's twin moons cast long shadows across the stone paths. Then, from the darkness, a figure emerged. Ryan froze. It was Daniel Carter, his old squad mate from Earth's military. Ryan hadn't seen him in years. "Carter." Ryan's voice was cautious. "You're supposed to be dead." Carter gave a small smirk. "Yeah, well, I was supposed to be a lot of things." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "You sent the message." Carter nodded. "I had to. We need to talk. Fast." Ryan glanced around. "Talk about what?" Carter stepped closer. His voice was low, urgent. "The Crimson Dawn isn't the real enemy." Ryan's body tensed. "What do you mean?" Carter exhaled. "The group you caught. The bomb at the summit. That was just a distraction. The real plan is still in motion." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Then what's the real plan?" Carter hesitated. "I don't know all of it, but I know this. They're coming for Alara, the hidden assassin." Ryan didn't waste a second. He turned and sprinted back toward the palace, his heart pounding. Carter ran beside him. "There's a traitor inside the palace." Ryan cursed under his breath. He had suspected as much, but now it was confirmed. They'd reached Alara's chambers just in time. A dark-cloaked figure stood in the doorway, a blade glowing blue in the moonlight. Alara was ready. She had drawn a Seraphim energy staff, blocking the attacker's strike. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed. Ryan didn't hesitate. He pulled his pulse gun and fired. The shot barely missed as the assassin leaped backward, flipping over the balcony railing and disappearing into the night. Guards rushed in, but it was too late. The attacker was gone. Alara exhaled, lowering her weapon. That was close. Ryan turned to Carter. "You were right." Carter nodded. "Yeah, and it's going to get worse. A bigger conspiracy." Later, in a secure war room, Ryan, Alara, and Carter studied everything they knew. "The Crimson Dawn isn't working alone," Carter said. "There's a larger group pulling the strings. They don't just want war. They want to control everything. Earth, the Seraphim Empire, all of it." Alara's expression was serious. "Then we must find them before they strike again." Ryan crossed his arms. "Easier said than done. If they have spies in the palace, we can't trust anyone." Carter nodded. "Which is why I need to go undercover. I have old contacts in the black market. If I dig deep enough, I might find the truth." Alara studied him. "And why should we trust you?" Carter gave a small grin. "Because Ryan does." Ryan sighed. "I don't know if I trust him yet, but he saved your life tonight. That's enough for now." Alara thought for a moment, then nodded. "Fine. But if you betray us, I will personally end you." Carter smirked. "Fair deal, princess. An unfinished war." As the night passed, Ryan stood on the balcony, looking over the city. Alara joined him. "You think this will ever end?" she asked softly. Ryan exhaled. "I don't know, but I do know one thing." She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Ryan turned to her, his voice firm. "I'm not going anywhere." Alara's golden eyes softened. For the first time, she believed him. The war wasn't over, but neither was their fight for peace. And this time, they would face it together. The Crimson Dawn had spies inside. The assassination attempt on Alara had failed, but Ryan Wells knew they would try again. And next time, they wouldn't miss. Carter had gone undercover to track down the real enemy, but until he returned with answers, Ryan and Alara were running out of time. So they made a decision. They would go on the offensive. Leaving the palace, late at night, Ryan and Alara stood in the royal hangar, dressed in disguises. Alara had exchanged her golden robes for a simple traveler's cloak, her long silver hair hidden beneath a hood. Ryan adjusted his weapons belt, checking his pulse gun. "Are you sure about this?" Alara gave him a determined look. "If we wait here, we die. If we act, we have a chance." Ryan smirked. "Good answer." Solvar, the head of Alara's royal guard, approached. "Your Highness, I still advise against this. If anything happens, I know the risks, Solvar, Alara said firmly. But I trust Ran. We need to find the truth ourselves. Solvar hesitated, then nodded. Very well. We will hold the palace as long as we can. Ryan and Alara boarded a small stealth ship, lifting off into the cold night sky. Their destination, a secret meeting with Carter, the enemy's true face. Hours later, Ryan guided the ship through the dark skies of Sirius Prime, a rogue planet outside the Empire's control. This was where Carter had called them, saying he had found the truth. They landed in an abandoned spaceport, stepping out cautiously. Carter was waiting, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a figure wrapped in dark robes, their face hidden beneath a mask. Ryan's instincts flared. "Who's your friend?" Ryan asked, hand hovering over his weapon. Carter raised his hands. "Relax. This is someone you need to meet." The masked figure removed their hood. Ryan's eyes widened. It was Ambassador Lorne, the same man they had arrested. "But you're in prison," Ryan said. Lorne smirked. "That's what they wanted you to think." Alara stepped forward. "Explain." "Now." Lorne sighed. "The Crimson Dawn. They're a tool, nothing more. The real power behind them is the Council of Shadows." Ryan frowned. "Never heard of them." Lorne nodded. "You wouldn't have. They work from the shadows, controlling conflicts from both sides. They don't want war or peace. They want control." Alara's golden eyes narrowed. "And why are you telling us this?" Lorne's smirk faded. "Because I was loyal to them once, until I realized they see us all, Seraphim and human alike, as pawns." Ryan still didn't trust him. "So why betray them now?" Lorne exhaled. "Because they don't just want Alara dead. They want Earth and the Seraphim Empire to collapse completely. If that happens, neither of us will survive." Silence followed. Then Alara spoke. "How do we stop them?" Lorne smiled. "Now we're asking the right questions." The final battle. Lorne revealed that the Council of Shadows was operating from a hidden station in the Red Nebula, coordinating attacks and controlling their spies. "If we destroy that station," Lorne said, "we cut off their ability to control the Crimson Dawn. They'll be left in chaos." Ryan crossed his arms. "Let me guess. Heavily armed, impossible to sneak into." Lorne chuckled. "Something like that." Alara glanced at Ryan. "We have to try." Ryan sighed. "I knew you'd say that." Within hours, they had a plan. With Lorne's codes, they would infiltrate the station, plant an EMP device, and shut it down for good. A simple plan. But simple never meant easy. A daring infiltration. Ryan, Alara, and Carter approached the station in disguise, using stolen access codes to slip past security. Inside, the halls were filled with armed guards and high-ranking officials, discussing more strategies as if moving pieces on a board. Ryan clenched his fists. "They don't care about lives, just control." Alara spotted a control room ahead. "That's our target." They moved fast. Ryan took down a guard, silencing him before he could react. Carter hacked into the main system, planting the EMP device. Then, the alarms blared. "They know we're here," Carter shouted. Ryan grabbed his weapon. "Time to fight our way out." The escape. Guards rushed in. Blaster fire filled the air. Ryan and Alara fought side by side, their movements instinctive, seamless. Lorne, injured, activated the EMP. The station shook as systems crashed. "You two go," Lorne gasped. "I'll hold them back." Ryan hesitated. "Lorne, go." Ryan grabbed Alara's hand, pulling her toward the exit. They sprinted through the chaos, barely making it to their ship as explosions rocked the station. As they flew away, the Council's headquarters collapsed behind them, flames consuming the shadowy empire that had controlled the war. It was over. A new beginning. Days later, back at the palace, Alara and Ryan stood before a crowd of Seraphims and humans. The war is over, Alara declared. And from this day forward, our people will stand together, not as enemies, but as allies. The crowd cheered. Ryan smirked. Not bad for a fake marriage. Alara turned to him, her golden eyes warm. Was it ever really fake? Ryan chuckled. Not to me. Alara took his hand. Then let's make it real. Ryan squeezed her fingers. I thought you'd never ask. As peace settled over their worlds, Ryan knew one thing for sure. This war had ended, but their future was just beginning.